Overthrowing Cricket's empire is just another cricket history book, but this time written from the other side. Get your copy today.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Good Areas Live. I'm Behram Kazi, who you can find at Def Mango on Twitter, and I've got a star-studded panel with me over here today to review the Guwahati test between India and South Africa. I've got my two colleagues with me, Saurabh Somani and Varun Alvakonda, and we've also got the Indian cricket team's former data analyst, Himanish Kanju, with us. It's been a while, Himanish Bhai, and I'm sure that you have lots and lots to say about this test series sweep that South Africa have just inflicted on India.
Yeah, thanks for having me. There's a lot of muddled thoughts here and there, which I hope to get out in the course of this live. But let's see.
All right then. Before we get into the fun stuff, I'd just like everyone to know that all of our shows and podcasts on the Good Areas Network are brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. They power them, and you can become one of them as well by going to Patreon/Good Areas Podcast. And that way you can enjoy ad-free content, you can talk to us exclusively, and you can give us podcast recommendations. All right then, gentlemen. India, they were rolled over for 140 this morning, and South Africa have effectively won the test match by a colossal 408 runs. It is the largest margin of defeat by runs for India in Test cricket. And they've obviously also swept the series 2-0, have become the third side in history to do that. Hansie Cronje's South Africa in 2000, Tom Latham's New Zealand in 2024. It's just saying that sounds a bit weird. And now Temba Bavuma's South Africa versus India in 2025. Within the space of a year, they've been swept twice. How do you guys feel? Obviously, there's a meltdown on the internet, but there's a lot at play over here. Like, you can't just single out one factor, right?
No, I'm just happy this series was 0-2 and not 1-1. Because I think, as I've said on a group multiple times, 1-1 might be my least favorite test result after, those old school 1-0 in 5 test match series. Like, I just hate it. Like, it's one of those things where, like, when it's 1-1, it's like, either play 3 test matches, or if you're just going to be an idiot, just play 1. Like, don't give me this 2 test match series.
Yeah, I mean, look, you and I previewed the series and I predicted 1-1, and that was also wrong. And I thought I was being radical because India on paper, in these home conditions, were the stronger team. But of course, a lot has gone awry. They've scored 200 plus just once in this entire series. 2 batters in India scored more than 100 runs overall, Washington Sundar and Ravindra Jadeja, whereas for South Africa, there was 7. And Temba Bavuma, he remains undefeated as South Africa's test skipper. In a white jersey when he's been captain. South Africa have played 12 test matches. They've won 11 and drawn a solitary test in this World Test Championship cycle where they're defending their title. They've played 4 test matches in Asia, lost in Lahore, 1 in Rawalpindi, and now they've won in Kolkata and Guwahati. 3 wins out of 4 in Asia. In no mood is Temba to give away that mace. Himanish Bhai, of course, you have worked with India's test team as well. Can I just ask you, first, thoughts on South Africa's rise, and then when Rahul Dravid's tenure ended, was there any sort of communication between you and the Indian national team?
See, first of all, I think like the analyst is not very important compared to the skills that you have in the team. And it's primarily a game of skill, and it's primarily a game of how the players play out there, right? Now, this sort of transition has been coming for a while. Ravindra Jadeja has been aging a little bit. Ash has retired, for example. It was a given that India would take 20 wickets when teams came to play in India. And if you look at the Kohli era, for example, 2016 to 2020, the pace and the spin averages for the Indian bowlers were the same. They were both around 20. So you had a good pace battery. You had a very, very good spin battery, obviously. And no matter what you did as the opposing team, even if you came and won the toss and made 500 runs, you'd lose. Because the bowling had the variety to get you out 2 times, right? Now, obviously, the pace battery has retired. You have to imagine that someone like Siraj was a 4th bowler in the pace battery, right? So you had Shami, Bumrah, then you had Ishant, and then you had Siraj. Now you have just Bumrah and Siraj who are short. And then you have a host of other pacers who are coming in who are not quite experienced in Test cricket. They haven't found their lengths. They don't have the skills to bowl with the old ball, for example, someone like Akashdeep, right? So it's going to take a little time and it's going to take a little vision from the Indian think tank to get them to that level where you you have like 5 bowlers that you can bank on. Currently, India don't have that. Currently, whenever you talk about India, it's always 2 bowlers, Bumrah and Kuldeep, and we don't have much after that. Siraj is a very, very good workhorse, and if you give him the right conditions, he can be devastating. But in these conditions, he is a workhorse and not a strike bowler. So currently, the main problem with India is that you don't have 4 bowlers who can take, you know. So once you don't get a team out twice, or you don't have the capability to get a team out twice, you'll always be losing. Uh,
Fair.
it's less about the batters and more about just knowing that someone like Kohli could call upon Shami, Umesh Yadav, Ishant, Bumrah. This is, and then Ashwin and Jadeja, and then Kuldeep, right? So you had 7 bowlers who were experienced, who knew how to get people out in these conditions, right? Currently, we have only 2 who are short. So without these bowlers, you can never hope to get teams out and you can never win. And this transition had to come at some point. Now, the problem is with the World Test Championship format, right? The planning always is short term. The planning is always to win the next series or to win the next cycle or whatever. Whereas this sort of transition demands long term planning. It has to be a 4, 5 year, 6 year window where you designate bowlers and then you track them and then you train them. I don't know how much of that is happening in India. Some portion might be happening, but they really have to focus hard over the next 3, 4 years to really get that battery of bowlers up again. Obviously, it's a very sobering thing to see, but I'm very, very happy for South Africa. The problem with visiting teams, the problem with Sena teams over the Kohli period or before that was, they used to get spinners to make up the numbers. You do need someone to spin the ball in India, so you get whoever's in county or you get whoever's in, but that is just making up the numbers. You come to India with a spinner like Zafar Ansari, who's not a very good spinner, right? Like he's okay. You come to, with Zafar Ansari or Dane Piet, right? They will not trouble the Indian batters. They will never trouble the Indian batters, no matter what the pitch is like. And so now the difference is that teams want to come to India and win. They want to prepare. If you look at, so this started from 2023 when Australia came here, right? Todd Murphy, Kuhneman, and Nathan Leon, all 3 of them got a lot of turn and they changed their angles, they changed their flight, they changed their speeds. So that was the time when visiting teams really decided that we need good bowlers to win in India. Then you had New Zealand come here and they won because they had Santner and Ajaz Patel and whatever. The first game was won by pace, but the other 2 were won by pace. So, and then you had South Africa who came with Hammer, who is probably the best off spinner in the world right now. So now the difference is that teams are coming here with the bowlers. Bowling matters in Test cricket. They're coming here with the bowlers to compete with India. So India have to think long and hard about what kind of surfaces they give to the teams as well. So it's sobering to watch. I'm happy for South Africa, as I was happy for the Kiwis. But India have a lot of planning to do, and it's very interesting now because it was getting a bit boring when like India kept winning at home. Now it's a bit interesting in how they'll rebuild.
That's a hot take. But anyway, you mentioned long-term thinking and vision. I'm going to bother you with this one again.
Yeah.
So where does data fit into this? Because you were quite closely,
Yeah.
working with the Indian team, and then you're not a part of the fold anymore. So were there any conversations that took place over there at all?
No, there were no conversations. So there was nothing after the World Cup win in Barbados. I had a couple of chats with some people in the BCCI in Barbados when we were stuck there in the storm, but nothing came of it, and I was not called or I was not talked to at all after that. See, like all management systems have their own ways to do things, right? And these people are smart people. Like Gautam Gambhir is a smart guy. Mone Mokul is a smart guy. These people know their stuff. They don't want to look at data the way we used to look at it in my time, which is their call, right? But I personally think it's very important to track these things. If you look at England, for example, so England and Australia are the 2 teams who are doing this on a regular basis. They have a full graded system of analysts who are doing all sorts of things from like background research right to tracking all their bowlers and batters through county and then talking to the team, right? So this sort of culture where you are sort of trying to understand the game with data and you're trying to sort of question everything with data is, I don't think it's very close to happening in India right now. Like in the UK, you have this culture where someone like Shoaib Bashir is picked for the Ashes because they have monitored how much dip he gets, because they have monitored his point of release, because they monitored his uh, uh, yeah. So they've been monitoring all this, and he's been picked for the attributes. It's a different matter that he doesn't have enough control, which you can coach, by the way, right? So, but he has that dip, which can make you successful in Australia. Maybe 10 years down the line, maybe not this Ashes, right? But they've been tracking these things. So I always maintain that in cricket, it's a 90% skill game, but the 10% can make a difference. So I'm not sure whether India are doing anything of this sort. I don't think they are. But yeah, like I would have liked to, be a part of it in some way, but I don't think they're doing any tracking of this sort right now. But I'm not sure.
Fair enough.
But
I
data
mean,
has a very important role. Like back to your question, like because you're tracking and preparing bowlers. See, when you're working with a Bumrah or a Jadeja or Ashwin, they don't need all this. They don't need data because they're already developed into like finished products. But at this stage, again, you've gone back to your polar performance in Ranji Trophy, and you've got to track those people, and you've got to teach them, and you've got to tell them what's happening, right? So here at this juncture, I think it's very important to have that.
right.
There
And I mean,
are,
yeah, when
I was
I
just
had
saying,
Himanish
there are
Bhai on pro sports, my sort of conclusion was that cricket is way behind, the curve when it comes to, let's say, North American sports and the way they use data. And we've got some data over here by Rushline as well, which I completely forgot to show everyone. But yes, there were win probabilities, at the start of the test match where you can see that India were, favorites, 60% winning odds, even though they'd lost the first test. And a draw, obviously, I think that's a bit steep though, 10% for a draw, because we don't see many of those. But maybe with the fact that we didn't have like later sunsets had a role to play over there. And South Africa were at 30%. Whereas if we go to the day 5 probability, you see that a draw was 1% likely and South Africa were 99% victors. Saurabh, of course, India are a team in transition. We know this. But pound for pound, in these conditions, they were the better side. South Africa are obviously on a roll right now, but they're also a flawed team. And the margin of victory, which is 408 runs, which is now the new record. I reckon Pakistan defeating India in Karachi was the last record, 360 odd runs. That has been broken. There is a meltdown. The batters haven't performed on what was a pitch with no demons for once, right? Like this was actually a flatter deck. What's your take on all of this? How do you view it?
Yeah, I don't think this pitch had any demons. It was not a flat, but it was not Kolkata. It was not, the kind that you know that a ball with your name will come along on any day, any session, any hour. It was not like that at all. So, and I think what lost it for India this test at least, a huge part was their first innings batting, because I don't know if you guys saw the dismissals. They were, I think like for a test match traditionalist like Varun, it's good that he's not in the IST time zone. He wouldn't have liked what he had seen.
Stupid,
that first
stupid,
innings batting.
stupid.
Yeah.
I thought they were tired, Saurabh. A lot of those shots looked tired to me because they had been fielding for 151.1 overs in South Africa. They did tire them out in that regard. So maybe there's a bit of exhaustion.
There is, but if you are playing Test cricket for a national team, there will be days when you have to field for 2 days and then come out to bat, right? You should be able to handle that. Like, you can't say
the
tired.
devil's advocate is in the pace playing pandemic. How many times have they had that scenario, right? And then in
They
first class
haven't, yeah.
cricket, you usually play shorter test matches. First class game, which is like 4 days or 3 days. So you aren't prepared for it
First
anyway.
class
That's
is Ranji Trophy. The league stage is 4 days. The knockouts are all 5 days. So I was just saying the Ranji Trophy, what Himanish was saying earlier, it's very fragmented. Some teams do this sort of data capturing and analysis, but it's not like some overarching set system that is there where everybody is tracking this and feeding it into some common database and for Indian cricket sort of. That is definitely not there. Some teams do, and I know that at least I don't know for the Ranji Trophy exactly. I assume it's there, but for this, which should show us a little bit about where the priorities lie. I know for a fact that for Syed Mushtaq Ali, even if all matches are not televised, the IPL scouts get access to the whole video for the of the matches because they rely on that for the auction and for picking players and all that.
Now,
So,
let me just come in here and tell you,
yeah.
so Hawkeye is a very expensive system. It has 6 cameras, which are very advanced, high frame rate, and so on. There is a lower version of that called iHawk, which you can put on one stump. It's one camera, you can put it on the stump or the umpire or wherever. England have data from that for all county games. Now, agreed that the scale of county cricket is nothing compared to the scale of Indian cricket, but there is no reason the BCCI should not be able
But
to
the
do it, right?
scale of BCCI's riches is also nothing compared
Yeah,
to the
that's
scale
what-
of
that's
any
what-
other board's riches.
I mean,
Oh.
if only India had the richest board in the world, maybe they could have sorted this out.
If only.
So the thing is that, see, data again will make 10-20% of a difference, right? Mostly you can, like I say often these days, most things in cricket are very obvious. If there is a good batter, if there's a Sachin or a Kohli or a Gill, and you're watching them play at 15, you will know that this guy will go and play for India and do whatever, right? So most things are obvious. But those 10%, 20% margins, they're needed. And the problem is that since most things are obvious in cricket, it's very hard for administrators to see the value, the marginal value of that 10%. And therefore, there's no need to do anything, right? Like the BCCI could easily install Hawkeye, like forget iHawk, they could install Hawkeye for every game, right? And have data for every single game we play at some level, right? But they don't because it's not needed, right? So until and unless, so this is what happens in leagues. When you go to the US and you go to leagues, because there's money riding on it and because there's competition and it's very fierce, there you want to eke out the 1%, 2% advantage, and that's why they use all the data. In the national board setup or the test setup, there is no such pressure. There's no such need to do all this. And until and unless the administrators and the coaches start believing in this, just as a culture, right? It's not like if I tell you something, you have to do it. In fact, what I told, the team, only about 5% of that, so just 5% is taken by the team, but even that culture being in place is very important. Because ultimately it's up to the player and the captain, right? The player and the captain are immersed in the game, and their decisions have to be influenced by thousands of other factors. But just having that culture of knowing everything that's possible to know about your game and the opponent's game, this culture hasn't come to cricket and definitely hasn't come to Indian cricket yet. So back to the point that Saurav was making, that you could have data of all kinds, and that will make a 10-20% difference. The greater problem, if I may move on to the next thing, the problem for India right now is they cannot trust the signal from the Ranji Trophy. And again, it has to come back to data, because if you don't trust the results, so if I can't trust averages and strike rates, I have to look at the attributes of the bowlers and the batters. So I have to look at which bowler has a high release point, which bowler is getting swing, which bowler gets more seam, which bowler has a good slower ball, which batter does well against good length balls, and so on. So then you have to get into the data, since you can't trust the results.
Yeah.
So this is an issue for India, where Ranji Trophy isn't supplying enough signal for them. And that is why there's a pipeline that if you do well in the Ranji Trophy for 3 seasons, then you have to go to the next level, which is the A teams. And if you do well in the A teams, then you're picked for India, which is a very, very good system. But currently the problem is that we are not getting enough people from the Ranji Trophy. So yeah.
So, well, if someone from the BCCI is listening, then at least invest in iHawk, if not Hawkeye. But some things are beyond data. Sometimes an eye test is enough. And Varun, I know you really want to talk about this. When it comes to selection, everyone could see that Simon Harmer is literally running riot versus, southpaws. Left-handed batters are struggling. And over here, when Shubman Gill gets injured, of course, that's a major blow to India because he's their number 4 batter, their captain, and someone who's well equipped to play spin bowling. Sure, you've lost him. But Gautam Gambhir, he doesn't bring in an emergency replacement, perhaps in the form of Karun Nair, who never actually got a home test when he was recalled, or Sarfaraz Khan, who's a really good player of spin and has a phenomenal Ranji Trophy record. Koti moves Washi away from, the false 3 position. Sai is back as the Gill replacement. Dhruv Jurel is batting at 4, which is a position a bit too high for him, I believe, although Pat Cummins might think differently. And then Nitish Kumar Reddy, your hometown boy, who clearly wasn't ready for this and wasn't given enough overs anyway. So it didn't really make sense to bring in another all-rounder. And whilst I do believe that India have lost this test match on ability more than tactics, this was a tactical screw-up by Gambhir, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't make sense on paper because I genuinely don't understand what's the end game with Washington and Nitish, right? If you tell me that eventually, let's say in the future, you want Washington at 6 and Nitish at 7 in all conditions, and you use one or the other depending on whether if the ball is spinning more, you use Washi's bowling more, and if the ball is seaming, you would use Nitish. I think I can understand that. There's nothing that suggests Washington Sundar can't handle being test quality number 6, and Nitish Kumar Reddy should at least be a replacement level number 7. But they've done such a horrendous job with Nitish. It's like, this is not the place you should be playing Nitish. Like, if you are going to play him, like, you're batting him at the wrong spot. Because as much as I love Jadeja, I think what's messing up both of their development is actually Jadeja still being around. Because if you have Jadeja, let's say even if you have Jadeja at 6, one of Nitish or Washi will be batting at 8, and you'll hurt their development anyway, right? So I think that's why Barham, I think, wanted Washington at 3, right? Because you want that flexibility.
Yep.
But the problem is, like, I think I'm more old school than Bahram is when it comes to this. I don't like that at all.
Right? Well, I wanted more specialists in the team by having Washi at 3. That didn't cross Gambhir's mind, right? He just wants more and more all-rounders. And I feel like even South Africa get their selection wrong, by the way. If Wiaan Mulder isn't batting at first drop, why is he playing ahead of Corbin Bosch, for instance, right? So that wasn't ideal either. But I still feel that whilst this is not the reason India have lost, surely you replace Gill with a proper middle-order batter as opposed to just, firefighting at the last moment where you're playing at home and you should be dominating on a surface, at least even after you've conceded 489 in 151.1 overs. Your mindset should be, let's bat for 2 days. That we didn't see. At first they were conservative, then they started throwing the kitchen sink at it and lost all their wickets. 201 runs in the second innings is where India lose this test match, isn't it?
Absolutely. So again, going back to the selection thing. So let's say you had Dhruv Jurel at 4, which is, I don't think is the right call. Why would you not bring Sarfaraz Khan in at 6? If the entire issue with Sarfaraz is he doesn't bat in the top in the domestic cricket, you don't need him to bat in the top in this test team, right? And again, which again, I think I talked to you before about this as well. You don't need to pick the same players for home and away. Like, surely I understand Ranji is not maybe like a good signal for like a test matches in Australia. I'll give you that. But are we saying it's not a good signal for test matches in India? Like, what's gone wrong there, right? Even like the last pitch, like there's no way you could prepare for that. But this was a traditional Indian pitch, right? Like, surely, like, you trust what Ranji is giving you. Because I've seen a lot of people say like a lot of the Indian players in this team are like IPL based. I'm like, I don't think they are IPL based. They got into this team because they did well in India A, right? Even Sai Sudarshan, I don't think I probably rate Sai less than anyone on this chat, but even he completely outperformed like an Abhimanyu Ishwar in India A games, right? That's why they're all in this team. Dhruv Jurel is averaging 75 for India A. Right? They earned their spot. I think the problem is that they're not being played in the right positions. And then there's a lot of chopping and changing. So if you had Sai Sudarshan, right, either if you drop them after 5 test matches, you either don't think he's good enough after 5 test matches, which I think him and Manish will answer statistically is a very stupid thing. That's not enough of a sample size, right? Or he's not good enough in the first place. And you don't think he's good enough in the first place. In which case, why did you pick him? So you're wrong in both fronts on that, right? That's the whole thing has just been like a clusterfuck of a mess for me. Manish, what are you thinking about this? Right?
I think the brouhaha over the batting positions is a bit overrated. I think it doesn't really matter if you play Jurel at 5 or 6 or 4. But what matters is you should give them a little clarity in terms of where they're batting and what their role is. And that will go a long way in sort of settling this team. Like, you need a settled top 7. You can have a few perturbations here and there, but you need a settled top 7 to understand what their role is when they're coming in and so on. And you can't be dropping people after 5 games like they did with Sai. Now, clearly, so the signal from the IPL is that this guy can play good bowlers. This guy can play someone like a Nokia or or some pacer from South Africa or Australia or whatever, right? So that is one signal. The other signal is that clearly he's performed for India A, and clearly the selectors know that he can face good bowling. He has a slightly unusual technique. If you look at the data, he plays the fuller good length, which is 4 to 5 meters. He plays it much more on the back foot than the average batter. So he has an unusual technique there. But there's no reason that shouldn't succeed. But you have to give him more than 5 test matches, especially because the conditions change a lot. India play on a pitch like Kolkata, where anything can happen, right? So you have to give him a stable run at that position and tell him what his role is. Maybe his role is to play 20 or 150 balls like Pujara, and he can do that. So tell him that, right? So you have to be a little stable with the batting order. Otherwise, I don't think there was a problem with selections in this game because you see, all of Akshar, Washington, and Jadeja are good enough to be specialist batters in India. And Washington showed that he could bat at three. The only contentious selection which has been throughout this regime is Reddy. And I don't know whether they are hastening to sort of build a pace all rounder for overseas, tests. But that guy averages 22 in Ranji, and it doesn't look like he's technically sound enough to be at this level right now. Maybe 3 years down the line, he will be. Jansen made him look like a tail ender when he got out in this match, right? So they have to have a clear plan for Reddy. He has a lot of talent, obviously. But the first issue is that he cannot even be a fifth bowler overseas because he bowls at 125. He doesn't have the height. He has to either gain some skill. He has to swing the ball. He can't seam the ball. He has to swing the ball, or he has to bowl that hard length, like Hardik, right? So Hardik started out as a very limited bowler. But in white ball cricket, we know what his strengths are, and we looked at the data for this. If he stays within the good and the hard length, he is unplayable, right? He can be a very, very good third seamer for you in the white ball game. So then we had to focus on that, and he's worked well for India with that, right? So you have to have a clear plan of what sort of bowler do you want Nitish Kumar Reddy to be. He cannot be someone like a Mitch Marsh who's like tall and he'll bang the ball in and he's a good fifth bowler for you, right? So he can't be someone like Cam Green. But then what can he be for you? Where do you play him in the world? So they have to have this plan, and he has to work on this batting. Because either you play him and you make him bowl in test matches, right? Or you don't play him, you give him off time to go back to Ranji, work on his game, come back, because you're looking for a certain designation in the player. I don't know why they picked him. They've dropped him again. They've flown him across the country again. I don't know what the deal is there. But if you want to make him a pace all-rounder, which is a very noble cause, have a plan for it and make sure he knows it and make sure you know it first, right? So I don't know what the thinking is with Nitish Kumar Reddy here. So yeah, that's the only contentious selection in this test match. Otherwise, I don't think there was a problem. I don't know which spinners from Ranji Trophy could have been there. Like, let's say you want to pick your 5 best bowlers, which clearly they don't want to do, but let's say you want to do it, right? So who are the best 2 or 3 spinners in Ranji Trophy after Jadeja? So Jadeja and Kuldeep is 2, and then you got to pick one more. So clearly, see, Washington has the attributes. He has a lot of drift. He has a lot of dip. I was looking at the numbers right now. So he has dip. He has drift. He has that height. He just has to develop, enough experience to bowl 25 over spells with the same revs. Sai Kishore is one more option, but again, he doesn't bat. So the obsession of this team with batters might be to his detriment, right? But you need someone who can do that. So someone like Ashwin or someone like Jadeja, they took 4 or 5 years to develop. I remember on Reddit in the early days when Ashwin came on and Jadeja came on, Ashwin used to get trolled heavily. And it took him time to grow into that bowler who can use multiple dimensions of spin. When the ball isn't turning, he can use the air, he can use the speed, he can use the dip. It takes time to develop that into a wicket-taking structure in your head and with your body, right? So Washington needs to bowl more, and Washington needs to understand how to do that on even flat pitches, right? And that'll take time, and that's what the transition is, right? It will take time for India. The one surprising aspect for me was Kuldeep, because although he bowled slower than all the other Indian bowlers, he's got less turn than them or turn at par with them. Now, there are multiple ways to get a wicket, right? So, if you look at the Stubbs wicket in the first innings, I think Stubbs said that he was done by the drift. So, there are multiple ways to take wickets in Test cricket. There is drift, there is dip, and so on, But you have to rely on your stock ball turning. You can make do without that, right? Someone like a Kumble, was there. But I'm very surprised by why he isn't getting the same amount of turn as he was earlier. It could be a format switching issue. It could be something to do with the shoulder is not strong enough to give you the revs, or I don't know. But if I were in the Indian team, I'd be tracking this and sort of have this in the back of my mind that something is going on here. But yeah, like coming back to the selections, I think this was an okay team. Uh, but the problem fundamentally is that the Indian bowlers could not get wickets on this pitch.
More
Uh,
on that in a bit. I want to talk to you about the spinners in particular, but before that, we will be taking a short break. You guys are watching Good Areas Live with Behram, Saurabh, Himanish, and Varun, and we will be back in like half a minute, so go nowhere. There's still lots to talk about.
Ross Taylor couldn't see at night or when the clouds were in. Eventually, he had to see an eye specialist who would fix his eyesight. In the 2 years before the change, he still averaged more than 50 in international cricket. The top level of batting talent can basically see in the dark. That is who we are talking about in our new book, The Art of Batting. Head over and order your copy today.
Welcome back to Good Areas Live. You guys are with Behram, Himanish, and Varun plus Saurabh, and we're currently reviewing India's 408-run loss to South Africa in Guwahati. Now, spin is obviously a key factor in any Asian conditions Test cricket, right? Like, India has been a hotbed for spinners for quite a while now. And even though this surface wasn't as conducive to spin bowling as we've seen, in some other areas, but ultimately Simon Harmer, he takes 3 for 64, followed by 6 for 37, 9 wickets in the Test match, 17 wickets in the series. He came, he harmed, he conquered, and he won Player of the Series. I don't think I've seen a finger spinner bowl as well as Harmer in India in a long, long time. Like, he was better than Ajaz Patel, better than Mitch Santner, better than Steve O'Keefe, Nathan Lyon, you name it, right? What is it, Himanish, that Harmer did so differently? I know he varies his pace also. Sometimes he bowls extremely slow, although conventional wisdom suggests that quicker spinners do better in India. And he was, the left-handed batter's kryptonite, but also ultimately took wickets of right-handers as well. He took 17 wickets and 9 in the Test match, whereas in this Test for India, Kuldeep takes 4 for 115 and then none for 48 in his second dig. And then Jadeja is their most successful bowler, I suppose. 2 for 94 and 4 for 62, something like that. Why couldn't Indian spinners crack what Harmer cracked? What's gone on over here? What does the data suggest?
So Harmer has a lot of experience in county cricket. He's bowled like thousands and thousands of overs.
Yeah.
And that's where you sort of hone that technique of getting wickets, and you get to know your own skills and hone them, right? So taking wickets is always a complex combination of factors. It's a combination of skill and luck as well. With Harmer, first of all, off the bat, his average turn is much higher than the other spinners. All the spinners who played in this series, his average turn is some 4.1 degrees or something. Which off the bat, like it's 4.3 off the bat, that is crazy, right? So that means he gets a lot of high turn balls. So if you look at high turn balls, which is more than 5 degrees, 32% for Simon Harmer. And if you compare it to someone like Sundar and Jadeja 15%, and Kuldeep is 18%. So 1 in 3 balls that Harmer is bowling is turning more than 5 degrees. And if you look at the data, the average drops heavily when you face a ball more than 5 degrees. So he's getting a lot of turns because he's built up the strength to put enough revs on the ball. Yeah. The other factor is, now, if you look at the good length percentage, so the good length is 4 to 6 meters. It's 4 to 7 sometimes in Test, but 4 to 6. Harmer doesn't have the best good length percentage. Sundar, Jadeja, and Kuldeep have a better good length percentage than he does. But when you're getting the ball to do much more of the pitch, then you don't need enough good length ball. So if I am bowling. So like if someone like, for example, let's see, someone like Akshar Patel bowled 78% good length balls, Sundar bowled 76%, Jadeja bowled 70%, Harmer was at 65. So, but because the ball is doing so much because of various reasons, he doesn't need to bowl 75% good length balls. 65% is enough to create a threat, right? The other factor, which is the most important factor, I think, is Harmer has a very, very high release point.
Yeah,
It's the
he's a tall
highest
guy.
among bowlers, right? So,
And the sorry to interject, but the Rishabh Pant dismissal, he's done by bounce in the last innings, right?
yeah. So that is a factor of both dip and height, right? So the key factor is how hard the ball is falling into the pitch vertically. And that comes from both height and dip. So Hammer has both of these things, right? So because the ball is falling more, he's getting more turn. And then there's a speed variation, right? If you look at the speed variation numbers also, let's see. Yeah, so Hammer has a 4.23 kilometers per hour variation. That is 1 sigma. So if you compare it to someone like Jadeja, for example, Jadeja is 2.7, Akshar is 3.2, Washington is 2.5. So that's not a lot of variation, but Hammer is 4.2 or like whatever. Yeah, 4.2. So that's a lot of variation. Now, what that does is, A, you can't predict whether the ball will turn or not because turn depends on the speed as well. So if Hammer wants to bowl something that goes on with the line, he'll bowl it faster, right? The other thing it does is the trajectory of the ball changes. If you're releasing from the same height and you want to bowl it a little slower, you have to flight it up a little bit to land it on the same length. It's basic physics. So now the batter will gauge the trajectory of the ball from the hand, and this will then confuse them if the ball change. This will then confuse them in terms of whether to go back or forward. So this is also a very minor variation, but it creates a lot of confusion within the batters' minds. So Harmer's performance is genius in the sense that it's a combination of everything. He is getting turn, he is getting dip, he is bowling enough good length balls, he is varying his speed a lot. So yeah, so once you have a combination of all this, which is nearly perfect, it's very, very hard to play it. Uh, it's very hard to play. And so, no matter, so I had a look at this by the way. So, between pitching and interception, if there's a gap of between 1.8 to 3.5 meters, then that's a danger zone in the sense that you will nick the ball. You either go forward or back. In between is the danger zone. The South African batters have a higher percentage of balls in the danger zone. So, technique wise, the Indian batters were slightly better than them in terms of this facet of the technique. But because the South African bowlers' balls did so much more compared to the Indian bowlers, they got out, right? So, once you're defending in front of your body, if the ball is a good enough, so the good length is a good length because it forces you to defend the ball in this danger zone. If it's too full, you can just tap it. If it's too short, you can go back. But the good length is a good length because you're caught in the in between. Now, if I get a good length ball which turns 5 degrees, no matter how good my technique is, you can't train for that. So you will get out. That's why batters get out. Otherwise, batters would never get out, right? Like if like online discourse will suggest that batters have all the agency, but batters don't have any agency. If you get a 5 degree turning ball on the stumps, you have to defend it. It's a good length ball. You can't reach out to it. You will get out, right? And it is down to the bowler and down to Simon Harmer in this case, where he bowled so many of these good balls that you couldn't escape him, right? So the numbers all suggest that in terms of turn, in terms of threatening balls, he was right up there compared to the Indian spinners. Like, yeah. So, yeah, like once you
I
face a bowler like that, it's very, very hard to survive.
I haven't
And
done as
plus,
much, obviously, forensic analysis as Himanish has done, but Harmer reminded me of peak Ashwin actually in a way. Like, did he feel the same to you?
Yeah, yeah. I
That
mean,
just that guile, that dip, that
yeah,
everything. The
yeah,
way he just seems to work out batsmen and like you said, have so many balls that are so good,
yeah.
which
So
It's interesting.
yeah,
Sorry to interject over here, but
go on, go on.
of course, we know that he's got the pace variations. He's getting more out of the surface than anyone else, and then he's also a 1,000+ first-class wicket veteran. Also comes to India 10 years later and exacts his revenge. So that's a nice little arc. But you mentioned how Indian batters were, playing the danger zone balls better. But you see some dismissals over here that really make you scratch your head. Like Jaiswal was set, batting on 58, scores the highest individual score for India in the first innings. And then he's on 13 and kind of smashing it in the fourth innings, right? His dismissals were the same. He's again cutting the ball, getting or edging out on deliveries which should be put away or should be left.
That's again bounce, right? So you have to give something to the bowler here and the pitch, right? So first of all, like in the first innings, there was a phase where only 3 or 4 balls misbehaved. And unluckily, so here is where luck comes in, right? Unluckily for India, they got 2 or 3 down on those 3, 4 balls, right? And that made them panic later and so on. So sometimes it just bounces more than you anticipate. And he was a little lazy. He went on the back foot. He prodded the ball went up. So sometimes this happens. I don't think there's any overarching panic about Indian spin playing techniques. There was a very good point that Rahane made on Ashwin's podcast that we as test players don't prepare now for spinning wickets because what we play on Ranji, so Ranji Trophy wickets are not the same as test wickets now, and so we don't get the kind of preparation we need for spinning wickets, and then you lose like this, right? So I don't think there's a problem with techniques as such. It's just a practice problem, and because of India's schedules, it's kind of hard to get that going. I think we have to give credit to the bowlers. Like I said earlier, teams are coming with very, very good bowlers now. You can't just turn up to India with anyone. They're coming with well-prepared bowlers, someone like a Santner, someone like a Harmer, right? Someone like a Todd Murphy, Kuhneman. So they are now coming with good bowlers, and that's challenging India now. 2015 to 21, they did not come with any good bowlers. So you couldn't challenge India no matter how the pitch was. So that's the difference.
Yeah. Also, India had the Ashwin Jadeja combination,
Yeah.
plus their batting lineup was far more experienced. But Saurabh, I know you've been quite critical of the batting. Of course, I also believe that getting rolled over for 201 in the second innings by India is detrimental, and there's a lot of poor shot making over there. Apart from Jaiswal's 58 and Jadeja's 54 in the fourth innings, there wasn't much resistance to begin with. How do you view the mode of dismissals and the way India kind of collapsed? Because I felt like there was a lack of clarity. At first, they were a bit circumspect, and then they kind of start to attack a bit more. And Gautam Gambhir over here is on record saying that we are the sort of team that can bat for 2 days or score 400 and 500 runs in a solitary day. So, do you feel like India's batters are ultimately the biggest reason why we've seen this sort of result?
No. I mean, Gambhir said we want to be the team that can chase 400 in a day or bat for 2 days. So far, they haven't done either. But I don't know if we can put so much of the blame like that on the batters because, especially after listening to Himanish explain just how good Harmer was. Now, if a bowler is that good, like he said, you don't have that much agency as a batter. And I think there is a lot of truth to the fact that, again, what Himanish said, that 2-3 wickets fell and then they panicked a little bit. That not panicking is something that they need to work on, I think, which, I don't know, it's a combination of factors. Having played in the pace playing pandemic and all that, you've not had to bat out time so much. So maybe that is also an art that needs to be honed at some intervals, before you can't just suddenly bat out a day if you haven't really done it. And you haven't learned the art of whatever, that giving the first hour to the bowler, second hour to the bowler, or whatever. If you haven't done that, or basically you need some like Pujara skills of the immediately previous generation. You need a Pujara sort of skill set where the previous ball has not bothered you, the score has not, you are just focused on this, and you are okay to not score, you're okay to not feel bat on ball, you're okay to just let that go. I don't know.
But don't you think Don't you think South Africa kind of gave India an opening as well? I know that Bavuma does some things right over here as well. First, he wins the toss, and it's always nice to not bat in the fourth innings. So, that's a good call. And then, obviously, not following on or not enforcing the follow on, I think was a good move, because why give India an opening at all at that point so that they can potentially rescue the game? But you and I were talking about this yesterday. I felt like they declared too late. 418 is the record chase in Test cricket. The minute you get to a 450 plus target, you should have declared. And had India somehow miraculously batted out the day, then we would be talking about this.
But I told you, right, it'll be wrapped up within the first 2 sessions. It took a lot shorter than that.
I suppose so.
I think they didn't leave it too late. They explained, Shukri Conrad explained the reasoning. They wanted a newish ball at the end of the day and at the start of the 5th day. So if you want that, then you have to time your declaration accordingly. And they wanted it at the end of the day because they felt like the shadows across the ground played a part in, batters finding it more difficult. So they wanted it then. Then they wanted it, obviously, you start a new day with a fresher ball. It's always, you always sort of want that, right? So I think that they timed the declaration really well. And this was something, I don't know, I think Varun also had some thoughts on this. I was saying that the longer you stay out, the more tired you make India's batters.
I mean,
and
he
the more
does say
scope
that.
is.
Shukri says that in a very bad way. And it's surprising how he says that. And now we're talking about Gautam Gambhir in his press conference, whereas Shukri channels his inner Tony Gregg. And we'd all like to forget that bit, I suppose. But Varun actually said that South Africa should just declare after scoring 10 runs because India aren't chasing 300. Those were the exact words.
Not. Yeah, exactly. Bar for bar. I was like, they could have declared for 0 and one still won by like 100 runs easily. I have zero faith in India chasing. Anything
Actually, if you think about it, they could have enforced the follow on and won. If India had
no,
scored
because that's
exactly
third
this
innings
much.
still. I don't know how that would work. If they had declared for 0, do you like do a
Oh,
Hansi
you
Kroon
just hit that.
without the fixing? So they could
Also-
have at least still won it.
What do you guys make of Rishabh Pant's captaincy? I know that obviously he's not the regular and this is just one test match, but in that Muthusamy and Jansen partnership, the fields became far too defensive. You're waiting for South Africa to make a mistake. You've conceded a lot of runs. Then you're giving 30 overs to Siraj in the first bowling innings and 32 to Bumrah. And that's Bumrah's second longest, over workload in test cricket history, or for him, at least in his career. I feel like that was a bit weird because you've got Nitish now. At least use him for the dog overs, no?
I think he gave it to Bumrah also because the ODIs follow next. Bumrah rested for those. This is the last test, so he thought, it's okay to push it a little. I would have preferred if he hadn't, because with Bumrah you have to think long term. You can't just think like, okay, he has 3 weeks rest coming up, so it's okay. You have to think long term. I would have preferred if he had bowled like just 25 overs or so. And like you said, give Nitish some of the dog overs. I don't know. We go back to that previous point. No, like the Nitish selection. Now in isolation, like Himanish said, in isolation, maybe that is the only problematic point. But the fact is, since the Border Gavaskar Trophy a year ago, we have seen these kind of selections regularly in the 11 of a guy who is there to slightly shore up the batting, slightly shore up the bowling, and ends up doing neither. And that, I think, is the big issue. Like, you get Shardul Thakur playing as a specialist number 8. Like the Shubman Gill clearly didn't trust him to bowl, so he didn't get bowling, and he's batting at number 8. Same thing has happened with Nitish here. He's bowled 6 overs and 4 overs. He's batted at number 7 and number 9. Okay, that number 9 was because Kuldeep went as night watchman. But even if you want a night watchman, they didn't even consider Nitish for that. I'm
sorry.
like-
Are you questioning Gautam Gambhir because he won India the Champions Trophy, he won India the Asia Cup, and he got that 2-2 result in England as well? So what are you saying here over here, Saurabh?
I'm saying grovel is the wrong word with G to focus on. There is some other.
Yeah, I mean, some of that stuff was flat out ridiculous.
Yeah.
And
So
I don't
on
know,
the Bumrah and Siraj thing, I think one of the reasons they over bowled them is because I think the spinners didn't bowl as well as they wanted them to. Like, I think I remember talking about this with you guys, right? It's if the spinners bowl better, they probably don't need Siraj and Bumrah to bowl as many overs as they did. Himanish, what do you think?
Yeah, like I do agree with you. Like I think they were just looking for things, like looking for wickets at some point, and the spinners weren't delivering that, and I have a lot of numbers on that as well. But yeah, like I think it's as simple as that. Like it was a long innings, and in a long innings, you'd think that your best bowlers are kind of overbowled. It happens. I didn't watch a lot of that innings because the time zone here is not like very good for me to watch the first session and so on. But yeah, like I think it's okay to overbowl your bowlers once or twice when you have a long innings and you want to look for wickets, but it happens. Like it's not a it's not the end of the world. I think.
Himanish, you mentioned
See,
how India's batters
Himanish,
did well.
Sorry, I wanted to interject. Himanish, Varun and I have a very narrow focus on Bumrah. We need him to end up with a test average below 20. So
Yeah, yeah.
what you said
300
works.
wickets at sub 20.
At sub 20, that is our overarching aim. That's why
Yeah.
long innings and all, no, like that is secondary for us.
See, Saurabh pretends over here that he is the president of the Jasprit Bumrah FC, whereas I've outbid him each time we've done an auction, and I've
Two
got
auctions,
Bumrah in the
yes.
end. So this don't believe anything he says. He's a charlatan in that regard. Pseudo president of Bumrah FC. But also, you gave us the bowling numbers for the spinners. I want to talk a bit about the batting. You mentioned how South Africa spinners were doing more off the surfaces, particularly Harmer, because Maharaj has kind of a stinker in the series, weirdly.
Yeah.
But South Africa's batters, I felt like, and I've been watching them in the Pakistan series as well, mind you. I've seen some great application. One thing is execution, what you're trying, you pull off. But I feel like what they were kind of approaching with respect to how to play spin was really, really good. I saw Muthusamy sweep the ball a lot, for instance. Tristan Stubbs, we always think of him as this dynamic batter, but he's shown his versatile side where he's basically shut up shop, and he scored the most runs in this test, right? At number 3, where no one's scoring runs, he scores 49 and 94. And Muthusamy, for those of you who don't know, is my birthday sake. So we were born on the same day, 22nd Feb 1994. I was in Rawalpindi, he was in Durban. This guy has had some weird trajectory in this cycle. First takes an 11-wicket haul versus Pakistan in Lahore, then a match-winning unbeaten 89 in Rawalpindi, and now 109 in Guwahati, maiden test done in the country of his ancestors. What did those guys, Muthusamy in particular, because I'm really curious, do really well over here in terms of ball interception points and stuff like that?
I'll give you a few surface level numbers. Obviously, in terms of just interception points, India were better than South Africa on average. But if you look, so I want to focus on 3 shots because there's a super chat here which talks about sweeps. Now, if you look at the sweeps, South Africa swept 6.55% of their balls. India swept 4.77%, so not a massive difference. But the massive difference is in defending, driving, and working. So those are the risk-free, shots that you have. So defending, India did 44%, South Africa did 34%. Now, where has that gone? So that's gone to driving, which India did 13%, South Africa 15%, and working the ball. So working the ball, India did 12.26%, and South Africa did 21.62%. Now, the kicker here is while working the ball, India averaged 21 and South Africa averaged 50. This is all versus spin. So this is a massive difference, working the ball versus spin. While driving the ball, India averaged 36 and South Africa averaged 51 against spin again. Now, this is surface level data, but it's a combination of multiple factors. So first of all, if the South African batters don't feel threatened by the amount of turn they're seeing on the pitch, and this happened a couple of times because they won the tosses, because they were batting in phases where the ball was doing nothing, and India were batting in the mornings where the ball was kind of doing something because of moisture. This is a result of all that, but the result is that they were averaging a lot more while working and driving the ball, and they were accessing a larger range of length. So if you look at the data, they were accessing a larger range of lengths while driving and working the ball. So it also has to do with their footwork, with their reach, with their height, and so on. But as a result of all this, they were able to gather runs risk-free against the Indian spinners compared to the Indian batters. And
But
that's
just
a
on the
good
sweep,
part yeah.
because South Africa are not known for sweeping and reverse sweeping the ball a lot. They're generally thought of as a team which struggles versus spin. I saw Rickleton, Tony DeZorzi, Muthusamy, Tristan Stubbs sweep and reverse sweep for fun. They were in complete control of those shots, and we saw that in this test from Muthusamy and what do you call it, Tristan Stubbs as well. So is that something, in these sort of conditions where you meet the ball earlier, obviously because you're sweeping it, that gives you an advantage? Because clearly Ashwin brought this up too.
Yeah. So if you look at the average, like the runs per wicket on sweeps, India have a much higher average on sweeps. But that is because India have been much more selective while sweeping. So this just tells you that South Africa has chosen to sweep a wider range of balls, and they don't have a higher average on it. So India averaged 38 and South Africa averaged 29. Uh, but since they've chosen to sweep, so what that does is that will make you change the field, that will make you change your length and so on. So it has a second order effect on what the bowling team does, although the averages aren't, there. Control percentage wise, they have similar control on, this shot. But I think more than the sweep, it's the lack of turn from the Indian bowlers. And resultantly, if you could drive the ball or you could work or push the ball, which is what gives you the runs without the risk of losing wickets, right? So that is the key to cruise control batting in Test cricket or ODI cricket. Like, can I gather runs on shots which don't have a risk? So that's what South Africa were able to do much better than India versus spinners because of a variety of factors, because of the pitch, because of the conditions, because of how the spinners bowled, because of their reach and their height and so on. It all comes together in this number. So this is one of the points which you won't hear because people don't have this data. But yeah, I think this was fairly there's a fairly significant difference between the driving averages that makes a difference.
Yeah, I mean, based on everything you've told us from the data, it seems like South Africa were just the better team. They were better equipped. Their players were better.
Yeah.
Their bowlers were better, basically. I think.
Also,
Yes,
I don't
I
know.
just
I'm
want
no
to say on South
expert.
Africa's batting, right? I think it's weird. If you actually look at the whole World Series, they don't actually bat that well. So because if you look at it, they don't actually get a lot of top seveners. Even in this Test match, they were 246 for six, I want to say, and it's actually Muthusamy and Jansen who take them to 480, right? So it's that the difference is you don't get a lot of batting from the top seven, but India, you got no batting from India's batters. So that's
And
probably where the big difference is,
if
right?
you look at the short series with low scores, those one or two innings can make the difference, right? For example, the first match, Babuma's innings and his partnership with who was that, Mulder or
Bosch.
Bosch,
Bosch.
right? That's what made the difference between chasing 80 and chasing 120, right? So because it's low scoring, one random event can really push the win probability hard, right? And because it's a small series, so you see, just on the back of Jansen and Hammer, they won the series. Those are the only two bowlers who did anything for South Africa, but that was enough because they did a lot. But since
They
it's a
took 20
two-match series,
wickets.
yeah.
Each time.
I mean, it was
also,
a slightly familiar sight, no? One off spinner and one left armer doing it, except wrong country.
I suppose. Also, I'm no expert on batting, obviously, but I'm guessing that if obviously India spinners didn't get the ball to tweak as much, then judging the length doesn't matter as much either. Am
It
I
doesn't.
onto something over here?
So basically, if the ball is turning and if the ball, so like if the bowler has the ability to control the amount of turn, so someone like Hama can do that because he has a ball which goes straight on. Someone like Ashwin could do that because he could very expertly control the direction of the seam. So once you have that in the back of your mind as a batter that the ball is turning 5 degrees, but one might not turn, then your setup and your sort of reactions to the ball are different. Whereas when you get settled into a session, let's say, where the ball is not turning and Washington is bowling at 90, he's keeping on going there, right? So that's a lot of control. They bowled with a lot of control, but there wasn't enough threat in their deliveries to do anything. And that then has second order effects where the batters can take more risks, they can defend a little lazily or whatever, right? So this is all hand wavy, but something of this sort happens, right? So clearly, like the bottom line is that Hammer and Jansen outperformed India, and we mustn't forget Jansen because the first innings collapse happened because Jansen went on a rampage and because India panicked. So there was a good reason to do what they did because to get a result in this match, they had to make the runs. They couldn't defend for 2 days. They had to go after the runs, so they decided to go for the runs. Whether those choices were wise at that point, I don't know, because like South Africa doesn't have bowling depth. So if you played out Jansen,
Exactly.
bowled 7 overs or 8 overs, like whatever he bowled, you play him out, and then you attack the other bowlers. Maybe they could have done that.
There's
Maybe it was
actually a
a good idea to swipe Jansen from outside off stump across the line when he's bowling from 6'7". Maybe it wasn't a good idea. But there was some
Maybe it wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
but
look,
there was
both
some
Jurel and Pant get out that way,
yeah,
but it was phenomenal from Marco Jansen throughout this Test match. First
yeah,
that blitzy knock, 93 of 91, that's his highest score, falls agonizingly short or 7 runs short of what would have been a marvelous stun. He tees off versus Jadeja in particular, uses his feet versus Kuldeep, also doesn't spare Siraj or Bumrah. And then comes out and takes 6 for 48. And Varun, you were telling me, or we were talking, that we can't remember a fast bowler doing this well in Asian conditions for the longest time, because he literally bounces India out. After those shots by Pant and Jurel, it's just batters not being able to negotiate the bounce at all, even though it was consistent. So 6 for 48, followed by what? 1 for 23, then 2 spectacular catches, whereas India are dropping chances. I think there were like 3 half chances they drop. KL drops a dolly in the slips. And on the other hand, Marco Jansen has taken 2 spectacular catches, and Markram breaks the record, right? Drops 1 and takes 9. That is the new record for most catches by an outfielder in Test cricket. I feel like, this sort of all-round performance, is particularly just with the ball for a seamer, is something that has been a standout in this Test match, because you don't get to see it too frequently, as Samit Khan is suggesting in the Super Chat as well.
Yeah, it's like, I think if you look at like before the 2000s, I think it used to be quite common for fast bowlers to average like under 25 in India, because India just didn't have a lot of great players to spin. Sorry, seam bowling, apart fast bowling. It's after like the whole, like once we had the VVS, Dravid, Sachin, that whole era, like it's very rare for overseas seamers to come in and do very well in India, because, for example, like Cummins and Rabada have very middling records in India, right? They would be alongside Bumrah the best fast bowlers of the generation. Anderson doesn't always have a great record, like. So it's why I think that's why like Jansen just came out of syllabus for everyone. Like with Harmer, I think we could have, all of us were like sort of predicting that if Harmer gets a surface that suits him, he could run through India. But none of us had Jansen taking as many wickets as he did, and bowling as well as he did.
He's clearly the real deal, because he hasn't played much in Asia, and now he's kind of staked his claim. There's a very fun question over here. All of you can answer it. So Samit says, is Jansen the best pace prospect? Where does the lone paces 6 for 48 on this track rank? Not above Staines 7 for 51 and Nagpur 10, but better than Klusener's 8 for 64, who had Pollock and Donald as support in Kolkata 96, or Staines 5 for 23 on a green Ahmedabad surface in 08. So I feel that Nagpur, Staines 7 for 51 is still number 1, but I'd take Jansen at number 2, no?
Yeah,
I think
I
Stain
agree
was
with
also
his,
just sexier.
ranking.
I think that's also the thing.
Stain was sexy. He wasn't as dry as Jansen, because Jansen has a bit of a
No.
Frankenstein feel to him. He doesn't
Even
have
if
many
you're
words,
muted.
he just intimidates you.
And Stain did it against a batting lineup that, for right now at least, looks like it was a lot more accomplished than this one. And Staines was, I think Varun has hit it, but yeah, he was just sexier, and that 7 for 51 is still 1 for me. I actually saw Klusener's 8 for 64 in 96 in Kolkata. I was very young then, but I saw it.
Oh, were
And-
you? Were you very
Yeah.
young then?
I have to say that, otherwise it'll look like I'm ancient.
By conceding that you watched that spell, you already conceding that you're ancient. It's okay.
I know, but I have to like qualify it like
Soften the
slightly.
blow, yeah.
Yeah. No, so
Anyway,
that
to
one.
answer the first part, I think he is the best pace prospect in the world right now. Yes, I do believe so.
What about you, Himanish? What do
Yeah,
you
like
feel?
with so like height is a cheat code in pace bowling, right? So with that height, even though he doesn't have the kind of control he should be having for a test bowler, it comes back to, if you have attributes, then you don't need to have that much control. And he's built a wobble ball, and he's slowly improving, right? So the ceiling is very, very high for him. Like it's very, very tough to play him. Even the first match you saw, like he got a couple of wickets. I think he got Rahul out from around the wicket, which was hardly a
yeah.
playable ball, right? So
You can't play
with
that.
with that height, you basically take the pitch out of the equation, and you can get bounce anywhere.
The fielders assisted him as well. That catch by Markram, the Nitish Kumar Reddy dismissal, he runs from third slip to gully and
Yeah.
dives.
And
It was amazing.
they were just talking about the gully not being there before that ball, and then he caught it and then he said, "You don't need a gully because Markram has."
Yeah, Markram didn't light the world on fire with his bat, but 9 catches in the Test match is phenomenal. And South Africa's fielding was far better than India's, particularly the catching, which was also a difference. Anyway, we've got plenty of super chats, not enough time, so let's take another short break. You guys are watching Good Areas Live with Behram, Himanish, Varun, and Saurabh, and we'll be back in like half a minute, so go nowhere. We'll be back to answer your questions.
I once made a pair in a club game, which is almost impossible to do. But I've been obsessed with batting my entire life. And so I put that into my new book, The Art of Batting. Being that I'm not very good at that skill, I decided to talk to other people who were. So I hit up as many contacts as I could just to talk about batting. Rahul Dravid, Brian Lara, A.B. de Villiers, Kumar Sangakkara, Ross Taylor, Susie Bates, Nasser Hussain, Ian Chappell, and so many, many, many more. I wanted batters to talk about how they and their friends made runs, because that is the art of batting.
Welcome back to Good Areas Live. You guys are with Behram, Himanish, Varun, and Saurabh. And we've been reviewing India's 408 loss in Guwahati, but now it's time for some super chats. Up first is Andy, 1999. He says, Ashwin doesn't think Gambhir's that bright, but feels he's being made an easy scapegoat. Says the red ball team has a way to go to reclaim its standing. So before we started this show, actually, Himanish Bhai, he said that he has some overall trends. Maybe he can share those with us, because I do feel that whilst Gambhir gets a lot of things wrong, like his all-rounder obsession in Test cricket, left-hand, right-hand combinations, and just like some weird statements in the press, I still don't understand. Was Gambhir protecting the Kolkata groundsmen or curators? Is Kotak protecting Gambhir, and why is no one protecting the players? I don't get that bit, but clearly there's more to this, right? Like
No,
India's downfall.
So as I tweeted yesterday, I think I tweeted or like this morning, uh, I don't think this test loss has too much of a direct link to Gambhir. This test series loss and this test loss has come down to the players just not being good enough in those games compared to South Africa. Now, there's a bunch of wonky selections happening since he's taken over. He clearly has an obsession with batting depth. This I maintained even before the Australia tour, that you cannot sacrifice bowling strength for the notional concept of a batting order, right? So you can't have a notional batting strength and then compromise your bowling. So clearly he has those ideas. Now those ideas work in T20 because the fundamental nature of T20 is very different from a test match. And in T20, it's really like it doesn't matter who the bowler is, except for if you have Narayan or Bumrah or Rashid or one of these freaks. Having 8 batters, which enables the second order effect of taking risks up top, matters. So it will always work. And then also remember that there are very few bank bowlers in T20. India have 2.5 of them, like Bumrah, Varun, and then half is Kuldeep. So they will more often than not win. And again, I talk about this, it's a skill heavy game. No matter how much you fuck up in terms of tactics, the higher skilled team will mostly win. Even in a format as capricious as T20, they'll win. And India have a very, very good T20 team. This sort of progression, going to Tilak or going to Abhishek, I have had these conversations many, many years ago. And this was always going to happen. It's not some stroke of genius. It is not some radical, upending of everything. This is the natural progression. If you see someone like Abhishek playing that well in the IPL, you have to pick him. If you see someone like Samson, there are no candidates for keepers in India right now. Pant is not doing well in the shortest format. You have to pick Samson. You have to pick Jitesh. So these are all natural things. He's not some... People like to paint people as heroes or villains or some genius. This is a natural progression of what's happening in Indian cricket. Like, you have to go towards that sort of team with the batting talent you have. We've had these conversations in the management many, many years ago. I've been backing Tilak for 4 years now. So it's not something radical. India will win in white ball because the white ball talent in India is simply crazy. So again, skill trumps tactics, so they will win. In a test match, it's inverted, where you need to first shore up your specialist and your bowling, first of all. So the problem is not Gambhir. The problem is that India don't have enough bowlers right now. It's the same as England going to India with Zafar Ansari. You have to take four pacers to Australia, but you don't have good enough pacers. So you're taking pacers who are raw, who have the attributes, but they're not ready. They don't have the length control. They don't hit the bat hard. They cannot bowl six balls on the same spot. They will take time to develop. There is no fast bowling culture in India, despite what people tell you. There's no fast bowling knowledge in the system. It will take time. And in that time, Gambhir is trying some wonky things out because he has to make up for it, right, somehow. And I think the face saving of having eight batters is a better prospect than getting 150 all out despite having five bowlers.
It's
Uh,
fascinating. You mentioned how they're not ready in
Yeah.
every sense, I suppose, because they're definitely not ready. But I feel that, he doesn't help himself in front of the press. And that's where Gambhir draws all the ire towards him. He's tried a many things, I feel. He needed to keep things simple and trust his specialists. But honestly, like, he diverts all the attention to himself, and that shouldn't, or in my mind, doesn't help the dressing room. Because to me, it feels like, if, like Jared talks about this, that if you keep giving the impassioned, patriotic speech every day, then players will check out, especially a team in transition. And I feel there's a bit of that, in play over here.
I mean, if you're doing that, you just play Chak De India scene on your thing, you don't need to
But
Border, border.
even Shah Rukh Khan did it
Border,
once.
border.
Fantastic. There's another question
No.
for you, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
just this is
Yeah.
on what you were talking about before, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you think of India's build up to the T20 World
Yeah.
Cup? Are they picking the best team, or is there a wake up call that is awaiting them? That
It's
I want to
interesting.
add to
So,
this, sorry.
yeah.
Before you answer this, I want to add to this. Why have they not picked both of Gill and Jaiswal in T20s and alternated them? Because clearly Jaiswal deserves a run in that format.
First of all, I don't think Gill should be playing T20s for
There you
India.
go.
I think Jaiswal is a much better prospect. If you look at his intent charts, they're off the charts. Like like before we had Abhishek Sharma, there was Jaiswal who's hitting in the power play. There's a slight problem with him where he sort of quietens down after the power play, which he has to work on. But so that's one thing. The major problems for India are the first problem, or the biggest problem, is lower order hitting. Uh, Despite 18, 19 years of the IPL, we have not been able to find trustworthy power hitters at 6 and 7. We've somehow made do with Hardik and Jadeja. Hardik was a very good pace hitter early on. Now he cannot hit good length and hard length pace. And international teams have the skills and the knowledge to target that. We got away with it in the World T20 win last year or like whatever. But this is a possible pitfall of the Indian team where you don't have a hitter at 6 and 7 who can reliably hit pace. Then you don't have someone at 8 who can hit pace. Someone like an Archer. Someone like an Archer will give you an innings, or a Cummins will give you an innings once in 5 innings. He'll give you an innings with 3 6s. Right? So someone like that who can come in for the last 3 balls and just swing it. Right? So we don't have that. In the West Indies, there was a good resonance between our all-rounder skill set and the conditions. So we could use Akshar at 4 and 5. That was our idea. We could use him as a spin hitter because we could not find spin hitters in this country. I don't know how. But we could use Akshar at 4 and 5. We can still use him there. But then again, you have a gap there at 6 and 7 and 8 where we don't know who the pace hitter is. Hardik will be there at 6, obviously. But whether there's someone at 7 who can hit. So Jitesh also, by the way, so Jitesh is a much better spin hitter than a pace hitter. His strike rates against hard length pace are woeful. Like in the last, so in the 24 IPL, it was 45 strike rate against fast hard length balls. In the 25 IPL, it went to 90, I think, but that's still bad. So we still don't have, the answers to that. The other problem is the bowling combination. So ideally, you'd like to play all of Varun, Kuldeep, and Bumrah, and then one more pacer. But then that one more pacer has to be Arshdeep because he's someone who can bowl at top and death both. So they'll have to be very careful about how they structure their bowling. But if you do this, then you have 7 batters. then you have 7 batters. So A, the pace hitting, B, the keeper, right? So the keeper can be either Samson or Jitesh. They have very different roles. So they're trying to shoehorn Samson into number 6 now, which might or might not work. Uh, but yeah, so these three things are the main problems for them right now, I think. And sometimes you can go through a tournament and win the tournament with these pitfalls, right? My job is to think in terms of I don't want any pitfalls in this team. Like what are so that way, like if you're being very critical about it and we want to plug all the holes, then we want to know what the issues are, and these are
I'll
the
add one more to that. I think if Arshdeep is not playing, I don't trust the power play bowling.
true. True.
Also, what's up with Dubey versus spin? He's dropped off.
So
Dubey has become the power play bowler now. That's why he's
yeah,
dropping.
Dubey
It's
is
become
the
prime
bowler.
Imran Khan, yeah. Yeah.
see, the thing with him is that teams have realized and they've seen the data and they've started going a little shorter to him. So he's a tall man. He has high reach. So that 5 to 6 meter length, which is the defensive spin bowling length, he could easily, hit that by just reaching out. Now, if you go a little shorter, if you go 6 to 7, so 6 to 7 is something that's come into T20 cricket recently over the past 3-4 years. 6 to 7 meters, bowlers are bowling more and more of it because it's just out of the batter's reach. So if you have tall batters like Green or like whatever, just out of their reach. So when you bowl there to him, he's not fast enough in terms of rocking onto the back foot and hitting it. So that's, I think, muddled his hitting a little bit. I don't think he's the long-term solution as a spin hitter, but again, like there is also a paucity of spin hitters in India, especially left-handed spin hitters. If you look at the numbers of Tilak, Rinku, Pant, they're not very good compared to the best in the world in terms of hitting. Yeah.
I
So,
think Tilak for some reason is like alternating years where like 1 year he'll be good versus spin, 1 year is shit. So it's weird.
yeah.
Anyway, I still feel India favorites in this home World Cup, but I don't think they
No,
picked
that they
their
are, of
perfect,
course.
perfect squads.
yeah.
I feel like they can be even more invincible if they wish to, but we'll see. I mean, I suppose anything but a trophy would be heavily criticized, I feel. Anyway, let's move on, Varun. We've got tons of super chats and we need to
So
end this
Uday
show
has
as
a
well.
super chat. I don't think he has a question. So just want
Okay.
to shout out to
Thanks
him.
for the money. Shout out to Uday Shankar. And now we've got Sameet. Once again, he says, after a subcontinent tour yielding 3 wins and a World Test Championship boost, South Africa's plan for Australia and England. They play them at home, don't they? I can't pronounce the first one, but my attempt would be Jikbera, maybe.
I'm just gonna say GQ
Newlands-
for
Okay.
ease.
Newlands, Kingsmead, and a Maharaj Harmer Muthusamy Pete spin ambush for a nation of quicks that be hilariously on brand chaos. I mean, it could happen in those particular conditions because global warming has caused the surfaces to turn more. And I feel like that trio of Maharaj Harmer and Muthusamy is actually pretty splendid. In fact, I feel Muthusamy could play as a batter in Asia. I'm there.
I mean, you're just biased because you share a birthday
Yeah.
with him. Yes.
The only difference is Durban and Rawalpindi. We're practically the same person. Okay. Let's move on. Samit once again says, as a Proteas fan, how do I even feel about this test side? Forget Smith's juggernaut, Hansi's late 90s crew would swat this lot aside before lunch. Is this nostalgia or just painful accuracy?
I think
all test
bit of
teams are
nostalgia.
flawed right now.
Listen,
Yeah.
Hansi's team had Pat Simcox as their spinner or Paul Harris. Like there's no
Klusno was
you
the
know-
frontline bowler. Let's not forget.
Yeah.
Also,
I
look at
mean-
Temba, man. How many of those people have Temba's legacy already? 12 tests, 11 wins, 1 draw.
Yeah.
I know
I
Smith
think
is
the Hansi
the
and
most
this team
successful
are-
test captain ever.
Yeah, so I think Hansi and this team would be quite comparable because if you look at it, like the 90s South Africans didn't have a strong batting lineup, right? So if you, like, I think
I mean,
like
it
Kirsten would be
fluctuated
the
sort
best
of.
batter. Yeah, but
Kirsten
they
was
didn't really
there,
have a great batter, right? Even Kirsten would
Smith's
be
team.
just of that tier. He'd be good. This is like Smith's team had like 3 or 4 like all-time greats all at the same time. Like,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
team didn't have that. So I think
And
so
he
they're
had Pete
comparable.
Callis, Smith,
This
right?
this
And-
current
and
South
Hansi
African is an
didn't.
incredible bowling attack. Like they even without Rabada. So
I think
True.
the only Graham Smith's team only lacks like a spinner of the quality that this team has. Other than that, they had Peak Stain.
I think Graham Smith's team is
That
obviously
week,
better
AB.
than this. Like there's no doubt
Yeah,
about it.
they are better.
I feel
yeah.
like West Indies of 70s and 80s, Australia of our youth, India of the 12-year period where they first were only winning at home but then started winning away. South Africa's Smith team has to be close to those ones, no?
South Africa were weird in the sense that I think they never lost away, but they lost at home.
Yeah.
Ben Stokes beat them at home once, and India
England
drew a
always-
series there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Australia won a fair few times. England
Australia
won a few
won.
times even in the 2000s.
Australia won. Yeah. Australia
Yeah.
won, which a win that Ponting said was actually amongst the best in his career because it was. With
Yeah,
a
I think
young
there was a
side.
period, I think, where like South Africa were
Phil
only
Hughes
winning in
debut,
Australia
yeah.
and Australia were only
Yeah.
winning in South Africa. Like both of them couldn't win at home. So
How
That
do
was
I
fun.
feel about this test side is that all teams are flawed. The last 12, 24 months have dished out weird as fuck, results. So in this flawed world of test cricket, South Africa are doing all right. They can take 20 wickets and their batters always chip in. You don't have out and out world class batters,
so
perhaps,
South
but they
Africa's
score runs.
issue before was they always had had an elite bowling attack for like 7 or 8 years now, right? Their issue is their batting lineup was for a while was the just two toothpicks held together by like a rubber band. So right now, what they've done is they've paired a competent batting lineup with an elite bowling attack. So they're winning a lot more and they're showing a lot more consistency. So that's why. So I think I've seen this a lot with Test fans. Is Test fans will not rate teams which have weak batting for some reason. It's always like I think if you ask the casual fans, it's like if you like, do you think a team that has an elite bowling attack and a mediocre batting lineup comparable to the team that has an elite batting attack and a mediocre bowling lineup? They'd say yes, but in reality, the team with the better bowling will almost always win more games. It's just how Test cricket works, right?
20 wickets.
You're just that's why the 2010s India team beats the 2000s one. But
Yeah, try explaining that to casual Indian fans. It will never happen.
We'll be called lockdown kids if we say that. So
I think the 2010s India team beats all India teams of the past, honestly.
absolutely. Yeah, it does.
Anyway, let's move on. Got Naveen Paidi. He asks, how can India's young players perform when they lack clarity on batting position, bowling role or selection? Is this our biggest problem? I think that's what Hemanish was talking about, no? There's a lack of clarity.
It's also a matter of quality. You see, like in the 2010s, what was happening was the batters who got picked for India, they were performing at 3-4 sigma levels compared to the average batter in the Ranji Trophy. So someone like Pant had a 65 average when he got picked for India, right? So someone like a Gill had an 80 average. So I don't think anyone is averaging like that over a period of 4 or 5 seasons now in India.
I mean,
the
Sarfaraz comes closest, I guess.
Sarfaraz is the only one, but I don't know why he's not selected. So,
That's
Even shed weight.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
another
So-
podcast.
Yeah. So now with the pitches in India, so like when we lost 0-8 in 2011, the pitches went to greener pitches. And they're green pitches, based on what I've read, the green pitches that stay low. So basically, like 125, 130 kph trundlers can get a lot of wickets. Like someone like a Rishi Dhawan averages 20 or something with the ball. So you are not getting enough preparation and you're not getting enough batting time in the middle to average 80 or 90 or whatever. So I don't see any clear contenders for batting in India, and it's a problem of skill as well because of the pitches. Like it's illogical to assume that humankind will regress towards less skill as time goes on. Like, it's illogical to assume that Dhruv Jurel is not as skilled as someone who played in the 80s for India.
Is it illogical to assume that Akshar Patel is a better player of spin than Sunil Gavaskar?
I was just about to say as well. We're on the same wavelength there.
I love you, bro.
Exactly on the same
Is
wavelength.
that imagine in the 80s, even the specialist batters did not get enough practice or exposure that someone like an Akshar Patel is getting now. So on, like someone like, who goes to England in 96 will not
That is
get...
Rahul Dravid, Saurav Ganguly.
No, like someone who's a bowler, right? Will not even get
Paras
like
Mambre.
10, so 10 balls to face in the nets, they won't get that. So the amount of practice and the amount of exposure you're getting now is infinitely more than someone in 1980. Now the what if question here is, had Sunil Gavaskar not got that level of practice, or had he got this level of practice, would he have solved the problem of fast spin, for example? We don't know. In all likelihood, he would have. But this is like saying that, do I like an A.R. Rahman soundtrack from 2008 better than 1990? In 2008, A.R. Rahman had access to like 25 more instruments. he was using a continuum fingerboard and harpeggi and whatever, right? So technically, because the technology has grown around him, he has expanded his over of things. But musically, is he the same? Obviously not. So these are nuanced comparisons which don't really make sense because now you are playing in a very, very different era in terms of how much batting you do. So I don't know if Sunil Gavaskar was as good as Akshar or better than Akshar or whatever. I think he was. But the gap is not a lot. Like it's not a lot, because simply because the exposure and training and facilities you get now as an India player are exponentially higher than what even Sunil Gavaskar would have got. So it's a very hard question to sort of simply answer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Also,
also, I just
Naveen,
wanna
I
say, like,
reckon if you
yeah.
employ Hawkeye or iHawk, maybe a lot of that issue gets fixed because you'd have better, data numbers from Ranji. That's where this conversation
Yes,
started.
definitely.
Yeah.
I think
We've come full
my
circle.
main issue with this batting lineup is no one's at the batting peak. Yes,
Yeah.
like it's
That's true.
yeah. If you want to make runs, that's usually the best way to make it.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean,
some are too old, some are too young.
yeah, and it's also conditions, right? So you saw what happened in England. Like they went and faced flat pitches and weaker bowling, and they all scored hundreds, right? Washington made 100, Jadeja made 100. It harkens back to those days of the 2000s, which people reminisce about. Sab log century marte the. That they used to do it because the pitches were flat, right? They were also very good batters, but this conception that we have in our head that 400 is a good score comes from that scale, and that scale is set in
Yeah.
place by the conditions. And that's why Gill scored 100, Pant scored runs, Rahul scored runs. It always depends on that. And now, because of the WTC and because of this cycle of revenge pitches, you don't play in easy conditions anymore. England are playing in easy conditions because they will absolutely suck if they play in tough conditions. They want to play
Yeah.
basketball, that's why the pitches are easy, right? So,
As I always like to say, no batter in the history of Test cricket averages 50 if you remove flat pitch runs. Absolutely no one.
Nice one. All right, let's move on. We've got Abhishek who says, "Hey guys, love your work as always. We love you too." My question is to Behram. All right, how do you think this Indian team will fare against the current Pakistan Test team? It might be easy to choose India, but I feel the Pakistani spin duo might be too good. Depends on the conditions. Once again, I feel like pace-friendly conditions Pakistan are done for because Bumrah and Siraj would be more than a handful for Pakistan to negotiate, and Pakistan struggles versus pace a lot these days. They also struggle versus spin, but they've got South Shakil, Salman Ali Agha, Rizwan, who can negotiate spin well. I feel like it all depends on how well Numan Sajid can bowl. If those two guys can turn it up, then perhaps, their faster spin and their pace variations are good too. Perhaps they can trouble India. And then if Pakistan win the toss specifically, maybe they can trouble India. But pound for pound, India, even this team in transition, I'd take over the Pakistan team. So you're getting the boring answer. I still think
But will
India
they
would win.
shake hands at the end of a test match?
No, they're never shaking hands again. Can we virtually shake hands, all of us, you guys with me, so that at least this part is kind of sorted? Anyway, yeah, bit of a stretch, I think. Pakistan have issues too. The Scene Uploader asks, a mega cricket system like India needs a director of cricket like Rob Key, like a fig in conjunction with a good data system,
Figure,
like
I think.
Himanish said. Oh, figure in conjunction with a good data system, like Himanish said. Good coach shouldn't micromanage pitch preparation 5 days before the game.
Also,
Take
the
it away,
coach shouldn't
Manish.
be so much in news, right? That's the other thing.
Yeah. True.
Uh, yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean,
I think
but
that
it's
he makes
entertaining.
sense.
His press conferences are entertaining at least. He said
I suppose.
he said I don't want to give excuses, and then he became Helen of Troy. She launched 1,000 ships. He launched 1,000 excuses.
Yeah.
I'm
Also,
just
like,
curious to
I
know
think
how
in the England,
strong.
yeah, during the England series, he was like, "This isn't a team in transition. This is India," and he's like, "Well,
Yeah.
this is a team in transition." So it's like,
This,
he does this to
is the
himself.
guy. This is the guy who says that a test victory hurts more than a physical injury. So I mean, Gambhir digs himself these holes, and I'm just curious to know how strong the frowning muscles are because he uses them all the time. He's never smiling. Guy has some issues. Anyway, let's move on. I think you're right, by the way, Scene Uploader, that would work. A director of cricket role is fine. Abhilash with a super chat says, despite all the numbers, the fact remains that in Kolkata, India dismissed South Africa in second innings cheaply. This series is 2-0 India. It's a bit of a stretch. RP, Rishabh Pant didn't bowl Jasprit Bumrah and it cost us or cost India the series. I was saying he overbowled Bumrah in the first innings. I think
I
this
think
is false.
he's talking about Kolkata. He's talking about Kolkata. That India
Oh,
would have.
okay.
Yeah, so I think you could make an argument on was it day? I think it was day 2 or day 3. They should have started with Bumrah and Jadeja instead of Jadeja and Akshar. So I think
Fair.
that might be what he's saying. And also, I
think
think
that-
like to be fair, like if Gill was fit, I think they might have scraped a win. Again, it's if buts and maybes. We don't know.
True. Yeah. 30 runs, right? That was a deficit, and Gill was retired hurt for 4. And South Africa had to take 18 wickets. So I think that's a fair claim. But despite that, I still feel South Africa, just the fact that they got everything right in Guwahati, it still could have been 1-1. So this is just conjecture. We can't say anything for sure. Okay, do we have more? The scene uploader once again asks, correct me if I'm wrong, as I understand, moisture helps seem by the softness in the surface, almost acting like a carpet as opposed to hard cement. Does the same softness help turn as well? Really curious. I think Himanish can answer this one. Oh, you're on mute. You'll have to come off mute.
What I've heard from cricketers is like I've been trying to make sense of this. What I've heard from cricketers and a few people working on the physics of the game is that the moisture basically helps the ball stick in the surface for a little longer. And because of that, you get more seam and more spin when there's moisture in the pitch.
There's a follow-up over here where scene uploader says, on second thought, my guess is that a
Yeah.
moisture-laden soft surface helps with extra
Yeah.
grip, leading to extra
Exactly.
movement, seam or turn. Okay, so
Exactly.
you got that one right.
That's the leading conjecture we have at this point. Yeah.
Got it. All right. Fox Savan is up next. Where'd the super chat go? Yeah, there it is. What it all boils down to is preparation. Half the team went for useless T20s in Australia, while South Africa managed to send an A team to India and drew 1-1 in Pakistan. Preparation. So, yes, they played in Pakistan, but the nature of the surfaces was slightly different over there. Good for batting at the start. Spinners were always in the game, but it never got too drastic. And then there was reverse swing at play. The A team only featured Temba and Muthusami, buddy.
No,
And even
also
India
I just want to
sent some
disagree. Even
players.
India played a lot of frontline players in the A squad. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
Rahul
Kuldeep,
played.
Siraj.
Kuldeep played.
Kuldeep,
Siraj.
who else played? I forgot.
Even Sai, I think, played, right?
Dhruv Jurel, he
Dhruv
scored
Jurel,
20
Pant
tons.
plays-
Dhruv Jurel, of
Pant
course.
captains
Pant,
the team.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
so in fact,
So
more
India
India
had
players play in the A
more
game.
Yeah, definitely. Way more India players.
I
played.
wouldn't call T20s exactly useless when there's a World Cup coming in 3 months. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, we've got a couple more. The guy with M, or that guy with M, asks, all the noise aside, what's Gautam Gambhir not doing right which Shastri Dravid did better, or is it just a team in transition? Well, let's ask the guy who worked with Dravid.
I mean, I don't know what the atmosphere within the team setup is like right now. But one of the things that I noticed from my time with the team was that there was a lot of comfort and there was a lot of security and a lot of almost joy. Because playing as an Indian cricketer at the highest level, you have unimaginable levels of pressure from the people, right? So the gravity of the station of playing for India with the social media now comes with a lot of added weight, and it's best to isolate yourself from that and make sure that the players are comfortable, players are happy, there's open lines of communication everywhere. So I think that is very important for anyone who's managing the Indian team. I think that's what Rohit and Rahul did very well. I don't know if that's being done now. I have no idea. So my advice to them would be to at least do that and make sure that the players feel comfortable, because it's not very comfortable outside the team bubble. There's a lot of noise,
Plus,
a lot of opinions, and like, yeah.
also, Jared quoted how Australia's team got rid of JL even when they were winning because Langer was just this guy who wouldn't like let anyone kind of speak up. And we saw that firsthand in the test, right? Where he goes off on Finchi and then Khwaja is the elected spokesperson and then Khwaja is out of the team. Like a lot happens in that series if you really pay attention. I feel like with guys like Shastri and Dravid, you had some senior members in the team who would also challenge notions. Kohli, Rohit, Ashwin, I'm guessing those guys would speak up fairly frequently and everyone had that sort of respect. But over here, maybe there aren't enough guys who can speak up to Gambhir. Again, pure conjecture. I don't know anything that's going on in the dressing room.
Yeah, who knows, man? Like, I think you need enough people around you to contradict you and to be sounding boards, because as a human, everyone has bad ideas, right? Now, the good leaders are the people who set systems up in place to filter those bad ideas out. And if you don't have enough sounding boards around you, you will never filter those bad ideas out. So I don't know how it works within the Indian team now, but like during my time at least, there was feedback coming from everyone, and everyone was open to. Even I was a nobody, right? Like I was talking to Rohit Sharma and Rahul Dravid. The first time I met Rohit for a meeting, I was taken aside by Rahul Bhai, and he told me, "Don't be too cocky. Don't say something nonsensical." So, but Rohit was very open with me, and he was very happy to chat with me, and they were taking like what I said on board, and that was the culture. Yeah, so I think that's important in a very high pressure environment, like if you're playing for India. So I don't know if it works that way now. I have no idea how the current team works, but yeah,
And Shastri was a great man manager, and his motivation style is slightly different, I
yeah,
suppose.
yeah.
But
But it
anyway,
was very effective. Huh? All players from
Yeah, but
Shastri era,
also
they
let's not
speak very highly
forget,
of his
right?
motivation.
Yeah.
if Ravi would
Also,
tell me something, I'd be pumped, dude. It's just the way he
of course,
talks.
yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
definitely. Yeah. Also, let's not forget when those guys were coaches, people were very critical of them. I remember people saying, "Oh, I can't believe India get rid of Anil Kumble for Ravi Shastri," and then when Rahul Dravid was coaching, they're like, "Oh well, I can't believe Shastri isn't the coach anymore." It's like,
Someone
people
was
just
even
find
on
reasons to be
record
critical,
saying
man.
that what has Shastri won? What has he done? Anyway, fun final super chat, guys, before we get cancelled.
Number two.
Summers Cricket asks, I guess after Kohli, the process of decline started, and it's not about talent, it's about giving Test cricket importance. We were safe for a bit because of Jaiswal and Bumrah. That's why he too goes down. Look, it's a natural regression as well. There's always downturn. India had a legendary team, and they would either create a dynasty or there would be downturn. And you've seen downturn. Even if Rohit and Kohli were in this side, there's no guarantee this scoreline would change.
In fact, I think we can argue the batting actually got better once they were replaced. Like, with all due respect to them, like
You were getting cancelled today, and you're getting your house is getting
it's a good
stoned.
thing I'm not very active on Twitter, man. That's all I'm gonna say.
They'll find your house and they'll stone it.
Anyway.
He's that's why he doesn't live in India. That's why he can say all
You
this.
know, they'll find it wherever he lives. Like,
Yeah. There's one more super chat now. So yeah, I mean, look, Kohli was great for wanting to take 20 wickets and all of that stuff, but it's not just Kohli. People don't talk about Ashwin enough, honestly, when there's this conversation going on.
Indeed.
He, I feel, is the biggest cog that is perhaps missing. All right, Blue Eagles, final super chat. As a fellow CSK fan, perhaps lapsed CSK fan, how is Himanish feeling about their prospects after the Sanju trade and flurry of replacements? I feel like Blue Eagles sends this super chat every show, so now you can answer it. Yeah.
see, like this season, everything got screwed for them. They did not have enough intent in the power play. They did not have enough firepower in the middle. They did not have enough bowling. I think this year they've showed up the top order a little bit. That frees their foreign spots for the bowlers and Noor. I think they have to play Ellis. I was very surprised that they did not play Ellis. I did pass on a message to them that this is but they, so they should play Ellis. Noor should be the other foreigner, and then I think they'll go pretty hard for Maxwell or Green or Russell, because again, there's no lower order hitting prospect there. So you need someone.
Brevis is going to be there, right?
Yeah,
Brevis
yeah,
is the
yeah.
third.
So
Baby
Yeah.
Abby.
Davis is at 4 or 5, and then
Yeah.
you
So you have
need-
one more overseas spot.
yeah, you have one more overseas. So traditionally, that template has been the overseas opener, but they've let go of that completely now. They've
Yeah.
dropped Conway and Rachin, which I was surprised by. Like Rachin, I think is a good prospect at 4 crores. But let's see where they go. They already have a glut of openers. They have Matre and Sheikh Rashid and Rutu.
Ju-
Well,
Just
Yeah,
as
there
an
are plenty of
aside
them.
from that, Himanish, you were talking about spin hitters. What about Rajat? Rajat Patidar.
Oh yeah, he's an incredible,
great-
incredible.
Yeah.
He's
Shreyas.
the best spin hitter in India. Now the thing is that we were looking for a left-handed spin hitter,
Okay.
but he hits both kinds of balls very well. So he hits the 5 to 6 meter length very well. He is the best spin hitter, I think, in India.
Better than Shreyas Iyer.
Yeah, easily.
Better.
Like
Okay.
Shreyas is a very classical batter, like in the sense that
Yeah.
if you bowl quick spin to him on the stumps from a good length, he will most probably tap it or defend it. Someone like Rajat has the footwork and the range to hit that for 6. I don't know with the new avatar of Shreyas, I haven't looked at the data yet, but maybe he can hit that as well. But he's very classical in the sense that he manages risk very well versus spin. And when he hits spin, he hits it very well. But he doesn't hit it often enough, I think. But I'll have to check whether that's changed in this season. Yeah,
So
but
I think
Rajat
with Shreyas, his
phenomenal.
strike rate versus spin is very similar to last season. It's his pace that strike
Yeah.
rate has gone up.
That,
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the
right.
pull shot, pull and
Yeah, yeah.
hook, where he's
Yeah.
gone
Yeah, yeah.
a bit mad, hasn't he?
Yeah, like
Anyway,
versus
And I think that turned Behram and Saurabh into Shreyas Iyer fanboys. Sorry, you were
yes,
saying him?
Yeah,
Manish?
but I wanted to bring in the RCB winning captain in a CSK super chat. So that I managed that.
of course. Now you're biased as well in many other ways that the world will find out soon enough, right? No spoilers. But anyway,
To be
that's
fair,
a wrap
I
on
think
all.
with CSK, I've just been in as a fan, I've been free flowing since 2020. I'm like, I'll take what I get. I still don't know how they won 2021 and 2023. It's one of those things. I'm like, sure.
Patharana's gone as well.
I
but
don't think they
Sanju
deserve to
is-
win either of those tournaments, but yeah.
If Sanju is the new Conway and they have Noor as their frontline spinner, I still feel like some of the and Baby AB in the middle order, Dewal Brevis. I feel like you never write off CSK in the first place, but they can be pretty competitive. Power play
Yeah,
runs, please attack. in
Urvil
the power
Patel
play.
has just smashed like some 30 odd ball, 40 odd ball, 100 I think in the side Mushtaq Ali. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right then.
It'll be interesting.
Anyway, that's
they'll have to look for a local spinner first, and they'll have to look for some pace bowling because it wasn't very effective last time. They'll have to look for a tall pacer, so that's where someone like Green or Russell comes in. So let's see.
All right. Well, that's a wrap on the super chats, and we have been speaking for over 100 minutes. But a lot of you have joined us, so thank you for your interactions. Thank you for your super chats as well. Thank you, Himanish Bhai. You took out the time. Of course,
it was
Saurabh
a pleasure
Varun and I are
to-
always talking. But I hope you had fun.
I had a lot of fun. It was a lot of pleasure to just have a freewheeling chat, and yeah, there's a lot of ranting left, which I hope to get out of the way at some point. But,
One of these days, you and I will do a podcast, bro. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
Something on data trends. But yeah, thank you to everyone who was tuning in with us and for your super chats. Just a quick reminder, you can go to goodareas.co and bookmark that webpage. That can prove to be your one-stop shop for all the fun work that we do as part of our team, whether it be written content, videos, or podcasts. And as I said at the start, all of our shows on the Good Areas Network are powered by our supporters on Patreon. You can become one of them by going to Patreon/Good Areas Podcast, and then you can enjoy ad-free content. You can give us podcast recommendations and talk to us exclusively as well. We'll see you soon enough. That's all for today. Have a good one, folks, and goodbye.
Ross Taylor couldn't see at night or when the clouds were in. Eventually, he had to see an eye specialist who would fix his eyesight. In the 2 years before the change, he still averaged more than 50 in international cricket. The top level of batting talent can basically see in the dark. That is who we are talking about in our new book, The Art of Batting. Head over and order your copy today. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. If you want to be part of the community that makes content like this, head over now.